Everyone please rise and think of anyone that was perished in the Shoah.
Oh, say, can you see what the dawn's early light was so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous night o'er the ramparts we marched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, save us that star-spangled banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Candle lighting, Zichron Nishmasayim of the 6 million Kedoshim will be performed this evening by a combination of survivors of the Holocaust and children of survivors. First candle will be lit by Eddie Rosenblum and Joel Klein. Second candle, Gene Chapnick and Nechama Tabor. Third candle, Lester Bleich and Ben Rosenstark. fourth candor, Mala Glanz, and Rabbi Mayer. Fifth candle, Helen Rosenstark and Lorraine Stein. Sixth candle, Rabbi Mayer Moskowitz and Rabbi Moskowitz. Memory of the Holocaust survivors be bound up in the bond of eternal life.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני ראוי לאכזר. בנושא יעריצנה למנוחו תנעלני, נפשי ישבב, ינחיל מגנצת למען שמו. גם כי ילד בגץ המוות לא ירק יעתי עמדי, שפצך ושענתך ינחמוני. תרוך לפני שלך נגד צערי, דשנת בהשם נפשי כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסי רפואי כל ימי חיי, ושעת רביעי סדנה לרחמם. A psalm by David, Hashem is my shepherd, I shall not lack. In lush meadows he laid me down beside tranquil waters, he leads me. He restores my soul, he leads me on paths of justice for his name's sake. If I walk in the valley overshadowed by death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in view of my tormentors. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of Hashem for long days.
asked Marshal Duman to allow me to introduce my father tonight, I didn't anticipate how difficult it would be to tell you about the person who has been my role model and my mentor my entire life. My Abba is truly a unique character, one of a kind. I dare say that there is no other person that I know who is equally comfortable delivering a Dvar Torah at the annual Malava Malka of the Bushtina Hasidim in Borough Park, and the opening remarks at the 75th celebration, reunion celebration of Machaneh Masad in Jerusalem just a few weeks later. Every Shabbat, Abba dons his Bekesh L'chvod Shabbat, and to rekindle his connection to his upbringing in Chernowitz, Romania, where he was the only son of the town's Hasidic Rebbe. And on most Sundays in the summer, he can be found sitting at the pool in his apartment at Roslyn, usually with a sefer in his hands. Growing up, I knew that my father was a Holocaust survivor whose father was murdered by the Nazis in front of him, and who somehow escaped and was smuggled into what was then Palestine as part of the illegal immigration during the war. But I didn't really learn most of the details of his story until a few years ago, when for his 80th birthday, my brothers and I, and some of our children, traveled with my father back to Chernowitz. For his entire life, my father has dedicated himself to educating Jewish children. First at Yeshiva Eitz Chaim in Borough Park, and then for 53 years at Ramaz. Despite a life often filled with difficult experiences, he has maintained a positive perspective, always thanking God for his many blessings. As a result, over the years, he has influenced thousands of men and women, some of whom live in West Hempstead and were his former students. And wherever we go, we're always stopped by one of his former students who greets him with a warm smile and a hug. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, in an essay he wrote for Parshat Tzav just a couple of weeks ago, says the following: there were Jews who, after the Holocaust, sought to define Jewish identity in terms of suffering, victimhood, and survival. To be sure, there is Jewish suffering. But had this been all, Jews would not have handed their identity to their children as their most precious legacy. To be a Jew is to feel a sense of gratitude, to see life as a gift, to be able to live through suffering without being defined by it, and thus to give hope the victory over fear. To be a Jew is to offer thanks. Those words summarize the way my father has lived his life. And so, without further ado, it's my honor and great privilege to introduce you to Avi Mori, Rabbi Mayer Moskowitz.
I must confess, I have nothing more to say. He told everything about me. And I would ask God, please God, to give me a long life, because I heard already my husband. That is not a part of my speech tonight. Couldn't help it. Thank you, Avi, for the kind words. Rabbi Kellerman, Kvod HaRabbanim, ladies and gentlemen, I look around and I am sure that many of us here are familiar with the ceremony of opening the Olympics. If not the Winter Olympics, because it was Friday night, but other times. And we see a person running with a burning torches and running and being honored to light the torch of the Olympics that burns till the end of the Olympics. I belong to a different Olympics. In the Jewish world, there's an Olympics of survivors. A few of us are still alive. Some of us could still run a little bit. Some of us walk with a cane, some with a walker, and some on a wheelchair. And we have lit our torch in the crematoriums of Majdanek, Auschwitz, and other camps. And we're running with these torches. What are these torches? Our stories. And we are trying to give it over to you, the next generation, with a prayer and hope that you will continue to tell our stories to the next generation in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Zachor Masha Salacha Amalek, the Amalek of the 20th century, Hitler Yamach Shemo. Abi already mentioned, yes, I'm proud to say that I am a son of a young rabbi in Chernowitz, in a city in Romania. Just a little background. Chernowitz, till the First World War, belonged to Austria. Then it became Romania. Then the Russians came in for a year. Then the Germans came in. And now it's Ukraine. My childhood as the Rebbe's son, and I want you to understand that Chernowitz and most of the people here, I hope I don't disappoint you, not everything in Europe was on a tefke, on the field on the roof. Not everybody was poor, not everybody was the milkman, and not everybody wore payas and a shtreimel. There were, like in the city of Chernowitz, the only one that wore a shtreimel in my father's shoe was my father. The rest of the people didn't have beards. On the Shabbos and Yom Tov, they wore suits, and high holidays, they wore cutaways with striped hands and top hats. And my father wore the shtreimel. My mother was the most beautiful woman, not because she was my mother. She was pretty. My father and my mother were first cousins. That's in the Rebbe Mishpachas. It happened, and that's why I'm a little bit the way I am. And I'm sorry. And they loved each other. And my father was the Rebbe. And whatever I am, I thank God and my father. In my short life, on 8.5 years, 9, he gave me what I am. He gave it to me with love and compassion and kindness. He was the Rebbe, but when I went to the Cheder, he was the one that made my sandwich. I didn't like the kids were drinking this fish oil, whatever it is, and he made sure that I drink it with a piece of orange. He made my sandwich to go to Cheder. He wrapped me around in a talus to bring me to the Cheder the first time. And he stood behind me when the Rebbe taught me Kumetz Aleph O, and a little cake came down from heaven. That's my father. He taught me to live. And I think that subconsciously, he prepared me for the Holocaust. I was wearing shorts in the winter time, and he would throw me in the snow, and he said to me, Mel, it's healthy, you wouldn't catch a cold. What do I understand in those days? But the way he taught me, he was the one that didn't read to me Chumash. That's the Cheder. When I came home from the Cheder, and he wanted me to rest, and his Pravashtiva, which was his office, there was a coach, and he said, Meiko, I want you to lie down to rest. He says, Tati, I'm not tired. He says, I'm not telling you to sleep. Lie down, close your eyes, and look. So I lied down, and he started to read to me the stories from Mindalam Chasforim, Sholem Alechem, Yud Lamed Peretz, in Yiddish, that came from Polish papers. The Torah he left to the Cheder and then to the yeshiva, but he wanted me to love. And that's what later I understand what it means, make the Torah sweet in our mouth. and he did it to me. I remember it till today. I was the youngest student in the Visions Yeshiva, the Blazer Visions. He brought me there. I always had little payas. I didn't wear the tzitzis outside. And I knew I was the Rebbe's son. And I acted like it. Because he is the one that gave me this education. Know who you are, and know who you represent. You are Ben Torah. And I'll share with you one of the most beautiful memories of mine. There was, in the summer, a place where all the rabbis used to come in Romania called Chernowitz. Beautiful mountain, it's like in Switzerland. And he was walking with me and always had a sefer in his hand. And we were walking, and he says, Meiko, let's sit down. You pick the tree. And we sat down, and I was really a kid. And he said to me, I'll show you something very interesting. And he opens the Mishnah, Pirkei Avot. I think I was at that time probably 4.5. How I remember the tree, and he took my hand and he said, Rabbi Yaakov Omer, HaMehalech Baderech, and I'll tell you why I remember it by heart. HaMehalech Baderech v'shoneh u'mafsik mi'mishnato harei mitchayeh benafsho. If a person goes and learns and stops learning and says, how beautiful is this tree, then he is guilty. And he asked me, like today, Maker, why do you think that a person is guilty? And I didn't know. And he asked me again, why do you think he's guilty? And I didn't know the answer. And my father looked at me with his beautiful blue eyes and with a smile. Do you know why? Because who he seek me mishnato. Because he stopped learning and he didn't see the beauty of nature as a part of God's wonder. And that's why his Messiah has been upshot. I have learned this Mishnah by heart. I didn't understand it for years, till I understood the beauty of this Chab. When I was 8.5, the Germans came in, and my present, not describing all the different the misery, the announcement was that all the people should go to their own synagogue or the nearest synagogue. And my father took my hand, and my mother took my sister's hand, and we went down to the shul. And in minutes, the shul was filled up with people, no air conditioning, like sardines, children, old and young. And people started to cry, and children started to, urinate in the shul. And it became the most horrible place. And suddenly the doors were locked, and we were in the shul. Friday afternoon, and then sunset, and my father took the towels and stood near the Amud, down in Kabbalah Shabbos, and I and my mother and my sister were sitting. And that's all night long. We didn't know what will happen. The next morning, the door opens, and SS men with a black suit, shined boots, comes in and says, the Rabbiner, the rabbi, my father stood. Carlos walked over on here, and the officer says to him, pull down, in German, pull down the curtain, the parochet. My father didn't do that. So he kicked him, and with anger, the SS men threw down the parochet. And then he says, open. And my father didn't do it. He kicked him again. And finally, he opened. And with this anger of a sadist, took out the Sefer Torah and threw it on the father and on the floor, and then took out the bayonet and tore the Sefer Torah and kicked him with their feet. And then he picked up my father and he says, march! And suddenly, the people there split, and my mother followed my father, and my father followed the officer till the door. When he came to the door, the officer says, no, not you, you stay here. And left. We come down to the backyard, and there my father was shot to death in my presence. And right away, they chased us to Transnistria, to the concentration camp in Ukraine. Just to let you know, If we say Hitler did it, Hitler could not have done that by himself if the world was not there. There isn't a place on the European soil that is not soaked with Jewish blood. When the road that we went and we chased the concentration camp, and I was a little kid, my sandals broke right away. You could see people on both sides of the road, lying there, half dead, some dead. Some were half dead, they couldn't walk anymore. So they let them stay there. Either a German or a Romanian soldier would have mercy and kill them, or they would die there slowly. They didn't care, and you could see that all the way. I must share with you one evening, as we were going to concentration camp Ukraine. It was a cold winter, cold night, rain and snow, partially already. And we were on a mountain, and suddenly my little feet, I can't feel them. And my mother was sitting on the mountain in the mud, and so was I, half naked because everything was torn already. And I said to my mother, Mutti, I can't feel my feet. And my mother said to me, Meiko, start running up and down. And I tried to do that, but as I stepped, I felt something soft, like a little mountain. And suddenly I realized these are bodies of human beings lying there. And I came back and said, Mutti, I can't run because there are people lying there. So she took my dirty little feet, started rubbing them with her hands, and then put them under her arms to warm them up. I fell asleep. The next morning, and God, I don't know, had a sense of humor or lahas. The sun was shining, and the mountain was covered with bodies, mothers with their breasts outside, and the child, baby, nursing, half dead, half frozen, and the sun was shining, and the German soldiers standing and smoking cigarettes, and they already called the Ukrainian peasants to dig the hole, and they were throwing these bodies into this grave maze. And I will never forget the voice and the pace of this old Jew, skinny old Jew with a beard, looking up, and he says, I have rachmanis on you. Take a look what you did to your children. It's Hoshana Rabbah. I'll never forget it. And we left him there, and we were taken to the concentration camp. The place that we lived, what you call living, in Chernowitz, in Ukraine, was a place where the people were thrown in without working. Whatever comes first. Either you die first, or you froze to death, or you die of typhoid fever, or maybe a German, or a Romanian, or a Ukrainian will have mercy on you and kill you. To make the story shorter, not too long, one day my mother was sick of typhoid fever and my sister. And suddenly I was picked up by the Germans and taken away from my mother. And when I remembered the last picture of her, when the Germans put me in the truck, it was a winter night, cold, bitter cold. And she was standing there like a skeleton, screaming, he's only a child. Das ist nur ein Kind. He's only a child. And the picture got smaller and smaller, and that was the end. And they took me to a labor camp, a child in a labor camp. And that's the last time that I saw my mother, and I thought I'll never see her again. But God wanted me to live. I don't know why. And as I will explain to you later in a minute, that living with the Holocaust is not easy. And sometimes I thought, I wish I did not live. It's too painful. me away from my mother, and they sent me to this labor camp. And then the Germans started to retreat, and they took the Jews with them to Odessa. Odessa, they took us to the train station. There was a destroyed building, and they put these Jews in there, and around with the German soldiers. And the snow was high, and there was no windows. I had nothing to wear. A piece of straw, a piece of paper. This is what I wrapped myself around in order to survive. That's the instinct of surviving. And suddenly I see one man jumping out the window, and I saw a second man jumping out the window. I don't know who these people were. And I, like a little dog, jumped out the window after them without knowing them where and what. It was deep snow. And I followed, then they dug themselves out, and I followed these two people without knowing who they are. Wherever they went, I went with them. And at that time, because the Germans already retreated, at night we were hiding in farms, wherever you could stand, in stables. And then the peasants, in the morning when they saw these two people, they thought they were Ukrainians running away from the Germans. And they were kind to them. And whatever they got, she or he, the peasant, gave me too. And this is how we survived. I don't know them. I never spoke to them. They never spoke to me. They didn't want to have anything to do with me. We came back to Romania, mind you. The city of YIWH. And YIWH was Rabbi Warman, and I remember him very well. He's a cousin of my father. And he used to spend time in Chernowitz, and we used to go to YIWH. And here I am, a skeleton of a child, infected, filthy, full of lice, and embarrassed the way I am. And I'm sitting, and as we came to YIWH in the middle of the night, somebody recognized probably that these two men were refugees. And one of them whispered to me, two men, there is a place there, you see a light, go in there, this is the place where refugees are given food and shelter. And we walked in there. I could tell you, if somebody would ask me, did you ever know what Gan Eden was? When we walked into this room, it was warm, and a lady was there, and she was kind, and she gave us something to eat. And I was sitting on the floor in a corner, embarrassed, and after she gave me something to eat, I whispered, Rabbi Warman, Rabbi Warman. And she came over, who said this? And then I was embarrassed, and I said, I did. Do you know Rabbi Warman? She says, how do you know Rabbi Warman? And I was ashamed to say. She ran out, and she brought Rabbi Warman. And he came, and he asked, who asked for me? And she showed on me. And Rabbi Warman walked over and asked me, wer bist du? Who are you? And with tears in my eyes, I said to him, I am Meku. That's how they called me at home. Meirke, I couldn't say the Resh. So since today, they call me Meku. I could, till today, see the picture. Rabbi Warman grabbed me, started to cry, and picked me up with all my filth. And he says, Meku, you come with me. And he took me home. Called immediately a doctor. They washed me, and they took care of me. And they wanted me to lie down on the bed. I couldn't. I could not lie down on the bed. I felt I'm not worthy. What Hitler did, he dehumanized you. He took away your humanity. How am I going to lie on a bed? And the guilt feeling is also. And then he made sure. He said, Meku, I'm going to send you to Bucharest from here. What do I know? And I didn't ask him why. And he said, in order for you to come there, I'll have to put you on a truck where they deliver chicken. They were boxes with live chicken, and the butter you will lie, and the guy that is driving the truck will take it to Bucharest. He will bring it to somebody. And good enough, I came to Bucharest in the underground. This is again which I want you people to know. During the war, there were Jews from Palestine sneaking into the German territory to save Jews. Not only Hannah Senish, which you probably heard about her, but there were Jews volunteering to smuggle into German territories into organized illegal immigration for children, whoever it was. And good enough, I was put on a boat, a Turkish boat, a fisher boat, called Kazbek, with 750 orphans. The chaperones of this boat were two daughters of the Baba Rebbe, the Sakmer Rebbe's only daughter and her husband, they were the chaperones. The reason why I'm telling you, because everybody knows that the Sakmer Rebbe was against Zionism. And I have no problems with it. You could be. But who is taking certificates and who is going to Palestine? This Goyish Median, his daughter and her husband and his sister. And God helped us. There were two boats, one of them where the children were drowned, and we saw it, and the other, our boat survived. We made it to Istanbul, and from Istanbul, they scattered us in order the British didn't allow Jews to come in. And then we were brought into Palestine in 1953. Under the Nazis and under the British, 750 kids through the trains. Again, another interesting point. When they put us in the underground, or the Haganah, put us in the train, this train were the same trains as they sent Jews to the concentration camp, with the little windows and barbed wire. When we walked in there, it was like a hotel. White beds with sheets, and they took off our shmatas, and they gave us Israeli sandals, short pants, covered temple, and they told us, if you are being asked who you are Israeli children traveling on a cruise, on a tiyul, on a hike, whatever it is, to another country. And this is how we were smuggled into Israel. And the mother of all of these children was an American lady, a daughter of a Reform rabbi, Henrietta Soul. And she is the founder of Hadassah. And she is the mother of all the children that were smuggled into Israel, what the orphans left after the Holocaust that was survived, and they came. I remember her with the little glasses, a little black hat, black dress with a white collar. She was loving and caring. And I then ended up in a school which is called Mikveh Israel. It still exists, founded by the Alliance Israel and the Rothschild family. It was the first agricultural school in Palestine. I came there. Half of the school was religious, Mizrahi, and half of the school was non-religious. The agreement was we had classes, separate guiding rooms. The only thing that we did together is work in the fields and then join the underground when we were in age to be sworn in. And that was all. And we were friendly, but different teachers, different classes. There's a beautiful synagogue in Mikveh Israel. Now here, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know what I owe God, my life, but I owe Israel. At that time, Eretz Israel, that gave me back my life. The first time that I saw sun was in Israel. And I wanted not to be a Holocaust child. I wanted to be a sovereign. I took off my shirt. I was a skeleton. It took me a long time not to steal food from the dining room. I didn't have to, there was plenty of food. I didn't sleep on the bed for weeks till our teachers or our parents, our psychiatrists, psychologists, guidance counselors, everything. And here, a little story, which would be interesting for you to know. One of the teachers was Hanoch, and we were told when you will reach the age that you will be able to join the Haganah, you will be sworn into the Haganah. And at that time, for us to dream that I will be a normal human being and be like all the Israelis, a sabra, to join the underground, to fight for the state of Israel. We were kids, teenagers at that time already. And there was a teacher, Hanoch, with a small kippah sruga and a red beard, piercing blue eyes. And every night, after I have already learned to sleep on the bed, he says you have to have your shoes shined, and everything should be ready because you never know. They might wake you up in the middle of the night to go to be sworn into the Haganah. And good enough, the night came, 5 boys and 5 girls were walking, and quietly we were walking from Mikveh Israel to Holon, where there's a send quietly, and he was running forward. And we came to a stop, dark, and suddenly we saw a little table with a lamp, and we walked over slowly. We didn't see the person behind the desk, the table. And as we came closer, we were standing in one line, we saw a revolver, a Tanakh, and a little lamp, and somebody sitting there, very deep voice, and he said, Atem yodim, atem הגעתם לארץ ישראל, ניצלתם מן השואה, על מנת להילחם להקמת מדינה. אם תחיו או לא תחיו זה לא חשוב, אבל אתם צריכים להילחם, ולכן באתם לכאן. ואתם צריכים להישבע על ספרא וסייף, שאתם תעשו את זאת. בדמעות בעינינו, with tears in our eyes, trembling, we touched the Tanakh, we touched the revolver, ואנחנו נשבעים. And this is how we were sworn in. Before that, I remember my father saying to me one day as a child, Meku, in Gott hat mir helfen, hat es aufwachsen, und es können von Kanal Zesrol zu lernen in Rav Kook's Yeshiva, or in Lublin. In Lublin was from Shotz, from the place where my father was the Rebbe before. The dream of my father was that I should be in Yerushalayim, learning in Rav Kook's Yeshiva, or Lublin, where to enter Lublin you had to know several hundred blood Gemara Bapeh. What did I know? I was a child, but I remember that. And after we were sworn in, we wanted to go into the dormitory to sleep, and Hanoch, this teacher with the red beard, stood in front of the dormitory. He says, "Where are you going?" לאן אתם הולכים? אנחנו הולכים לישון. He says, "לא, אתם לא הולכים לישון. You're not going to sleep, follow me." We followed them out. There was a little tender, and he would put on that tender, and he drove this tender in the middle of the night to Yerushalayim. That's my first time to be in Yerushalayim. And he took us down to the Kotel HaMaravi, which at that time was a garbage dump where the Arabs used to dump garbage. Today it's the big thing. But at that time, a small alley, Arab houses here, this is the Kotel, and the Arabs would throw the garbage there. And I came down to the Kotel, it was cold. God knows, I walked over to the Kotel and touched the stones. And with tears in my eyes, I said, Abba, Ani Khan. I said to my father, I'm here. Your dream is that I'm interested. Unfortunately, not in the yeshiva. This is my first experience to be in Yerushalayim, and my first experience to be at that kotel. The second experience in Lublin, when I took my students from Ramaz to the March of the Living. We came to Lublin, and one of the students of Yeshiva University made a serum. And Lublin, the Yeshiva, was a medical school at that time, and the Beis Medrash was a lecture hall, and they allowed us to daven, and somebody from Yeshiva University made a serum, and I said again, I said Kaddish, and I said, Abba, I'm here. In Lublin. When I was in Mikveh Israel, milking a cow, suddenly somebody, the head of the school, came with a gentleman dressed as an American and pointed at me. And this gentleman started to cry. So I figured to myself, probably an American that gave a few dollars to the United Jewish Appeal. And I show him, this is a survived child. This is exactly what I thought. And good enough, a few minutes later, 2 minutes later, this person comes over to me and starts hugging me, crying. And he said, I'm a cousin of your mother. And he takes out a picture of my mother. He said, your mother is alive. And she's on her way to the United States. He lost a wife and children. He met my mother, she survived. He met her in Bucharest. He was also looking for maybe somebody for safety of his family. And he happened to meet my mother. And my mother, and he told her, I'm going to travel wherever and I could get in. Maybe I will find somebody. And my mother gave every person a picture of herself. Maybe you will find my son. Maybe he's alive. And this is how it happened. My uncle met him in New York, and he said, there's no family for you. Yes, but I'll help you to go to Palestine. And the Jewish Agency has a list of illegal immigrants, and you will find names, maybe you will find somebody. He found my name, Mayer Moskowitz, and the age, and Mikveh Israel, and he came. And this is how I found out that my mother is alive. And then I have a dilemma. And I must confess, I did not want to come to the United States, and please God, forgive me. I wanted to be in Israel, but I had a dilemma. Kibbut Em, my mother survived, she's alive. Will I not go to see her? And I made a decision that I would come to the United States. I had a girlfriend in Israel. She became my sister-in-law. And I left to the United States. And on the way I was thinking, will I recognize my mother? Where am I going? I came as a student here, on a student paper. I was not allowed to tell anybody that I had relatives, otherwise I can't come off the boat. So I came as a student to Tiferes Yerushalayim. That was my uncle sent me the papers. And how am I going to find out who is my mother? How does she look? I left her more dead than alive. I'm standing on the boat, looking out. People are waving to people. I'm looking, I don't recognize anybody. Suddenly I saw a man with a red beard, with a round coupage, a velvet hat, a Rebbe, and near him a woman. So I imagine, I put together, maybe this is my mother and this is my uncle. Yes, they were. I'm not going to tell you what our conversation was when I met my mother. There were 2 words that she says to me, and 2 words that I said to her with tears in our eyes. She says, Meku, you are alive. And I said, Mutti, you are alive. And that's it. We were hugging and kissing and crying. We never talked about the Holocaust, my mother and myself. Unfortunately, she died of amyotrophic sclerosis later. She was a pretty woman. And I must confess, I carried a lot of anger that I had to leave Israel and come to see her. It was worth, and God has His plan in this world. I'm here. I'm happily married. I have a wonderful family. And I have learned one lesson. If God wanted you to live, you could have been, I could have been, a depressed, angry, depressed human being. And I decided that's not what God wants for me. If you're alive, you have to do something with your life. Otherwise, you wouldn't be alive. And I decided, and I talked to Moshe, and I'll tell you a story with him, to go into education. I could. I'm not stupid. I'm not so stupid, but I could have gotten into one of the, become a rich person and live in Park Avenue and have a chauffeur if I would be successful. But then I realized, why did I pick education? Years later, and I said it to my class once, to a senior class, the reason why is probably subconsciously to get back my youth that I never had, the childhood that I never had. And I enjoyed every moment being around young people. I hope I made a difference in someone's life. And God was kind to me. And there are no words to thank Him. And many times I was asked, how could you believe in a God after the Holocaust? Elie Wiesel's son was my student. Elie Wiesel went in the same yeshiva that I went in Auschwitz. And we talked many times. And Elie Wiesel used to say, I have problems. I said to him, Elie, I don't have problems. God did not kill my father. I could still see the face of the Nazi that shot him. And here I must stop for a minute. For years I didn't talk about the Holocaust. And then somebody said to me, Mayer, why don't you go for therapy? And I joined a therapy group therapy. And for days, there were 3 women, and I was the only one. And I had a lot of anger in me, a lot of anger. And I'm not going into details. And one day, the psychiatrist said to me, do you mind if I bring in another person to this group? And everybody said no. And the next session, we're sitting, and suddenly the door opens. A tall, young man, blue eyes, blonde hair, walked in. I started to tremble and started to cry on the spot. And the psychologist looks at me and he said, Mayer, go ahead, let it out. And I said, I'm sorry to this man. I don't know who you are, but you look exactly like the Nazi that killed my father. I was crying, and we hugged, and that was my closure at that point of what I went through. And I would like to end with 2 things. My dear son Avi, 9 years ago, talked to me and he said, Abba, I would like to go with you back to Europe. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to go back. It's too painful. But I love him, and I listened to him. And I did. And I took my 3 kids. My daughter was supposed to go, got sick at the day when I had to leave. So 3 sons and 3 grandchildren. And we went back to Chernowitz, the place where I was born. And we came there, it was Tisha B'Av, to Chernowitz, Tisha B'Av night. And Mordechai, Avi's son-in-law, reform student, made contact with Lubavitch. Thank God Lubavitch is everywhere, even in Chernowitz. And we told them, we are coming in Tisha B'Av night. We don't have a minyan, or we'd like to have a minyan for Echad. And good enough, we come to the hotel, and Lubavitch is there waiting for us. And I told him, I was born here in my house where my father had a shul, Steingasse. And I don't know now, it has a Russian name, a Ukrainian name. Could you find out? He says, don't worry. I have a map before, good enough. In the morning he comes, he says, I know where it is, and I'll take you there. And he took us, showed us, we took a taxi, we went down to the place with our car, with a guide, with a chauffeur. The house became an apartment house, people are living there. And my son Yoel is here. And I showed him where the tragedy took place when my father was shot. And I, without knowing, Yoel pulled out a brick from the building there, in this part. And now it's an apartment house. And then in the same day, we traveled to the concentration camp, to Stalingrad, with a car, where I was walking as a child when they chased me to camp. For weeks, we did it in a day from the morning. We came to Tisha B'Av, to Stalingrad, and the shul still stands there. And the shul was the most horrible place. All the dead bodies were lying there. When people were dying, and we took care of it. Whoever, the Jews that could, took the people and put them near the shul on a pile in the winter. And you could see a dog or a cat running around with a part of a human body. It was a part of what we saw. And Hasan Katz that survived and came to Washington. I remember him standing there for hours, El Mulrachmim, and the people were being passed by, and he would say it. And when we came, we wanted to go into the shul, to daven in this place, which was the most horrible place for me. And good enough, the guide, there was a little grocery store there with a Ukrainian woman, and he says to her, there are people here, and we would like to go into the synagogue. And suddenly she starts screaming, and I tell her we are going to pay her. No, she was screaming to another woman that she has the key to the shul. And this other woman came, and she's a young woman. She smells from salami, and she speaks a little bit of English, and we told her, I want to go into the synagogue. She says, why? I says, I was here in the concentration. She says, no concentration camp. My father, my mother lived here. She spoke English. To make the long story short, she is Jewish. She has a son that is in Israel in the army. Please listen. I said to her, why are you here? She says, I'm 90% blind. My mother lives here. What am I going to do in Israel? I come here, the government supports me, and this is how I live. And I have the key to the shul. She opened. The shul is now a winery. Big containers with wine. They allowed us, and we walked upstairs. And the kids, we put on in the afternoon the tefillin. I never forget it. My sons are here, Abi and Yoel. And I was crying, and suddenly I was shaking. If not my children, I would have died there, because I relived what I went through in this concentration camp in 15, 20 minutes. And suddenly, I felt hands around me, my children, my grandchildren, and they started to sing Ani Maamin. And I would like to finish at this point in asking you, please rise and let's sing the Ani Maamin. If I could ask the gentleman that left the ticker to come up to help me, if he's here. Not, I will have to do it myself. Okay. Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin, Emuna Shelema, Beviach Samashiach, Beviach Samashiach, Ani Mamin, Sheismameya, Ikose, Ani Mamin. Kolot Baleva, Belima, Nefesh Yerudi, Omiya, Ufatei Mizrach, Kadima, Ayem Letzion, Sophia.
Have you ever felt there's nowhere to turn? Things seem confused, no one's concerned. The times we live in are oh so dark. Little faith, no lights a spark. Clears our vision, eases pain. Hope arises again. Hope arises again. This Ya'atah Dishmaya, whatever I do, when I need Him to help me, He'll always come through. Never will I be alone. With His help, I can stand on my own. This Ya'atah Dishmaya, whatever will be, all the world that I hope for is open to me. I need Him to show me the way. This Ya'atah Dishmaya.
Sometimes we feel the strength of our hand can bring us success, but we don't understand.
It's not always the way it seems. Hashem alone provides our means and stands behind every circumstance. No, it's not only by chance.
It's not only by chance. This Ya'atah Dishmaya, whatever I do, when I need Him to help me, He'll always come through. Never will I be alone. With His help, I can stand on my own. This Ya'atah Dishmaya, whatever will be, all the world that I hope for is open to me.
most inspiring words this evening. Thanks to all of you for attending this evening and for making this program of remembrance that has always been and will always be. Also, a last-minute thank you to Dan Sokolov, who substituted the last minute for recording this evening. We will conclude with the recitation of Kaddish by Richard Silver, and which will be followed by Meyer of Minion, for those who have not heard Meyer yet. Once again, thank you very much for coming. We will conclude with the recitation.
I ask you to please all stand for the Kaddish. If there's anyone here who has a parent deceased, even one parent deceased, then you can join into the recitation of this Kaddish. Kaddish is the Kaddish Yasam.
Iskadal, Iskadash, Meraba, Ziamadura, Fusei, Yamlik Hasusei, Betayekon, Numekon, Nebakayeko, Beis Israel, Bagala, Tisman Kori, Bimru Amen, Yehesh, Rabba, Barak, Veola, Monei, Ramaya, Isfarak, Ishtabak, Isfarak, Isroman, Isnasei, Isador, Isale, Isalosh, Shmek, Kusha, Birkelu, Be'elam Kovik Batsa, V'Shirasa, Tushbekasa, V'Netamasa, Tamir V'Yama, V'Mru Amen, Yehesh Lama Rabba Mitshemaya, V'Tanko V'Balinu V'Yakod Yisrael, V'Mru Amen, Osechon Nemrama, V'Yasek Shemainu V'Yakod Yisrael, V'Mru Amen.
Rabbi Galler will also be giving a sheer memory of Kadosh HaShoah in the Beis HaMedrash, after which there will be another minyan for Ma'ariv.